Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where every day we explore the latest innovations and trends that are shaping the world of technology and business. So I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I have Martin James, the Vice President of EMEA at Aerospike. Now, if you've not heard of them, Aerospike is a company at the forefront of real-time data management, and they have some huge clients from Yahoo to Wayfair and Experian. And today's guest is not only an expert on the massive growth of data globally, but he's also an incredibly interesting guy with a keen love of horses and Arsenal Football Club. But can we link all that to data? Well, we're going to try today. And we're also going to be diving into topics such as the rise of data usage and processing for enterprises, the role of data platforms in delivering real-time processing, and that importance of data to ad tech applications. So buckle up and hold on tight, because today, no matter where you're listening in the world, I'm going to be beaming your ears all the way to Windsor here in the UK, where you can join me and Martin sitting down for an insightful conversation. So let's get started. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Martin. Can I ask that you share your background and your journey, your origin story that led you to join Aerospike, and what drew you to the company?
Certainly. But obviously, Neil, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. But I'm happy to give you some insight into my dark, but sadly not very mysterious past. By trade, I'm a mechanical engineer, and over 5 years of university that culminated the postgraduate stuff at Cambridge, where I realised there were some seriously brighter people than me. So I thought, if I'm going to be average at something, I'll be average at something that's well paid. So I went into sales straight from university. And my real kind of software sales school was Computer Associates, which at the time was like the Wild West in terms of its business practice. We had the longest months of March ever in order to book business before the year end. Yeah. Those days have now gone, fortunately. But since my CA days, I've tended to work for smaller companies where I can drive growth and help the growth of people that work for me. But with specific to Aerospike, what drew me to that company initially was, of course, a headhunter, but there was actually a great solutions engineer working at Aerospike with whom I'd worked as an Aerospike competitor previously. They've recently been on one of your podcasts, in fact.
Oh,
Data Stacks.
Yes.
He's now at Aerospike, and so I did some background checking on Aerospike with him, and it was apparent that Aerospike does two things, one really well and the other not so well. They have built a great product, but not enough people know about it. So I joined in order to really relaunch and rebuild the EMEA business. So that's what brings me to this conversation.
Fantastic. There's so many reasons I invited you on the podcast. And a few weeks ago, I was at a tech conference in Vegas, and what struck me was the big theme of the event was data everywhere, and how that data inside every organization is crucial in helping every organization navigate this period of uncertainty that we're all in. So I've got to ask, in your opinion, what are the key factors driving the massive growth of data globally, and how is it impacting various industries, particularly ad tech from your point of view?
Obviously, our heritage is within the ad tech marketplace. But yeah, I think the first thing to note is just the availability of technology. You know, most of us are familiar with Moore's Law. Sad to see that Gordon Moore recently passed away. Yeah. However, whilst Moore's Law was originally based around compute power, it does sort of apply to storage. So we see this ongoing increasing capability and capacity of storage devices combined with a reducing price point. So the combination of those two enables data growth. But of course, it doesn't explain why it's happening. I think why it's happening is because of really three things. And these are three things that I think drive most of my customers into making an IT or purchasing decision. And the three things are revenue generation, or how can they obtain efficiencies, i.e. reduce costs. And then the third reason is legislation. And I think all three of those things contribute to the requirement to have more data. So whilst we can talk about digital transformation, I think one of the thing that when I look at these things, organizations they need more data in order to have new revenue generating applications. That's obvious. But we also see lots of examples where IT and the use of data can help organizations dramatically reduce costs, things like IoT. And this is really important with the economic challenges we have at the moment. And then the third thing, around regulation, we've got issues such as corporate social responsibility, mental health, safer gambling, if you're in Vegas, and specifically the deprecation of cookies, which is one of the hot topics in the ad tech industry. So that deprecation of cookies, which is due to the associated data privacy issues, means that organizations will need to have added layers of sophistication and data in order to make good decisions and comply with the regulations. Does that answer the question?
It does. And one thing I'm conscious of is we're talking about Aerospike here, and a lot of people listening might be hearing about it for the first time. So maybe give me a bit of an overview of what you guys do, the problems you solve, and ultimately how real-time data management platforms like Aerospike can help enterprises make better use of that plethora of data available to them, because it's something that every business has. Every business has. It's locked down in silos so often, but obviously that's changing now. But can you offer a bit of an overview around that and the value that companies like Aerospike offer?
Very simply, we are a NoSQL database. To better describe, real-time data management platforms, I think I'll break it down into three areas. And you'll notice I talk about threes a lot. It helps my thought processes. So yeah. In my mind, there are three main elements to any data management platform. You've got to get the data in, you've got to process it, and then you've got to get it out in a way that it can be used by your business or your users. So to cover the in and the out of our data platform, like many others, we have a level of openness and connectivity to the tools that our customers use. So we have interfaces with JMS, Apache Pulsar, Kafka, connectors, all those sort of things. We can provide access via Elasticsearch, Starburst set of products, which also provides SQL access. But getting data in and out of it's a bit of a commodity exercise, because there's hundreds of tools that can help you get data in and out of data platforms. The real measure of the value that we bring as a data management platform is how much data can you process, how quickly, and at what cost. So what Aerospike helps organizations do is manage this data from terabytes through to hundreds of petabytes with linear scalability, all with a sub-millisecond response time. And so we do all this, but we also enable them to reduce the amount of hardware that's required by up to about 80%. That is a real game changer. So we've got some great examples with PayPal, Airtel, Criteo, Wayfair, where they've reduced thousands of servers to a few hundred by implementing Aerospike. So that really helps them with their sustainability targets as well. And then I think the final thing I should mention about the Aerospike capability is that we have this thing called the hybrid memory architecture. We've got a number of patents around it. And this enables organizations to achieve cache-type performance from their disks. So that's not only substantially cheaper, but it also reduces architectural complexity. So you no longer have to have a separate cache and then also a back-end database. You can have a single database platform that covers the whole environment. And that's a great cost-saving and architectural simplicity that our customers enjoy.
And I think we're all seeing data platforms increasingly play a crucial role in delivering real-time processing to power globally distributed applications. So can you expand on this and also why it's becoming so essential for every business in every industry today?
Well, I suppose any modern data platform needs to manage the data in a way that matches the business requirements.
Yeah.
And these requirements, again, surprising. I probably see three main reasons. The first one is regulatory. So with the various regulatory demands we now have, you have to ensure that the data is processed and held within a specific geographical location. That is really key. Secondly, you also have the latency demands. So you've got to ensure that the data is processed as close to the end user as possible so you can meet the application and the end user SLAs. And then thirdly, the application architecture. So as companies move from managing monolithic architectures and they implement microservices, and this in turn will require that the data is held and processed in a much more highly distributed fashion. So for all of these reasons, distributed data platforms are something that you need to have underpinning any modern application development. And I've got probably, one of our many examples is Experian. Most people know who Experian are.
Yeah.
They use this in their fraud and risk product line. Fraud, or I should say fraud prevention. So it's a good use case for Aerospike. And we've got several banks and payment platforms like PayPal using us because of the latency we can provide. However, for Experian, they needed to use a regional or a distributed data model, as they needed to ensure that the data stays in the appropriate region in order to adhere to local data privacy and consumer protection regulations. So that's another great reason for wanting a distributed data platform.
And a few moments ago, you mentioned low latency there. And before you came on the podcast, I was reading the importance of sub-millisecond performance and low latency, and how that helps better manage data for globally distributed applications. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how Aerospike addresses those needs? Because again, that's becoming almost a standard expectation now, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. I was talking with a prospect last week, and they said that they had an SLA of a sub-millisecond, but they were achieving 3 to 4 milliseconds, which meant the application just did not work. So latency is key in a number of industries for fast decision making, provisioning the correct adverts to online users and shoppers. As I said, determining whether a transaction is fraudulent or not. However, I would suggest that the importance of sub-millisecond performance is not the main issue, because if you invest sufficient time, money, and hardware, you can potentially achieve it. What we find is more important is how do you achieve that sub-millisecond performance if you don't have all of those assets, you don't have the time, you don't have the money, you don't have unlimited resources of hardware. So what Aerospike has, we have this patented technology, as I mentioned before, the hybrid memory architecture, which places the data onto the solid state drives, the SSDs, and it then has the indexes in DRAM. Aerospike then treats these SSDs as raw devices. We write data in large blocks, and we are using a really highly efficient custom file format. Now, without going into the weeds on this, the net effect of all of this is that you get the performance of DRAM for the price and reliability of the SSDs, which is a massive cost saving. And this data storage paradigm also enables our customers to reduce the number of nodes that they require by staggering amounts. So PayPal, as an example, they had a 15 times reduction in hardware when they implemented us, but they also had a 5x throughput improvement. And this enabled them to achieve, I think it was a 30 times reduction in missed fraud transactions. So it's not just about latency, it's about bringing all of these things together in order to provide a solution to the business. That's what's really important.
And you mentioned Experian a couple of minutes ago, and I know you work with other big brands, everything from Wayfair to Yahoo. And just to bring to life everything that we're talking about here today, you don't have to name any names, but do you have any examples of how Aerospike's real-time data management can improve operations, customer experiences? Is there any stories you're able to share around that, just to bring it to life for anyone listening?
Yes, indeed. I mentioned Experian already. However, Wayfair is a great example, especially as I'm a Wayfair user myself. For those people who don't know about Wayfair, then I think they're probably the world's largest e-commerce destination for home furnishings and decor and things like that. with revenues of about $12 billion US dollars. And they use Aerospike to very simply join customer activity and recommendations to sale events that are happening on their website in real time. So they use data from the edge, real-time data and contextual data to provide a better picture of the consumer and personalize the shopping experience. So they are tracking events online and listening to customers' activity in order to help make marketing decisions and recommendation decisions as well. And so through that, Wayfair have this phrase that they say that they know what you want before you do, because of the way they're able to make these recommendations. And by implementing Aerospike as part of their platform, it's enabled them to have, I think, an increase of about 30% in the average cart size at checkout. Plus, at the same time, ensure sub-millisecond latency, so you're still highly engaged with those customers. And remarkably, they've done this whilst reducing the number of servers by about 90%. That's 90%. So quite an incredible story for us.
Wow, that's incredible. As someone working right in the eye of the storm, so to speak, from all the conversations that you're having with your customers and some of the biggest brands in the world, I'm curious, what are some of the unique or biggest challenges that ad tech applications are facing right now, and how can data management solutions like Aerospike help address them and turn those challenges into opportunities?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is around the cookie deprecation that I've mentioned before. I think the regulation and legislation is still a big factor. The ability to ensure that data doesn't cross geographical boundaries. So the ad techs and any global industry need to ensure that they can have distributed data to adhere to those requirements. The other issues we see are probably less of a technology, but more of a talent thing. Access to great talent. There are certain pockets of talent outside of the UK, as an example, which makes it difficult for some of the ad techs we talk to in the UK to get access to great people within their organizations. I think we've seen a bit of a reset on that recently with some of the redundancies that the larger players have unfortunately had to make. But I think overall, the regulatory issues seem to be a key factor for a number of the ad techs that we work with at the moment.
And as an expert on the massive growth of data globally, how do you envision the future of data management and processing, particularly in sectors like ad tech? I mean, we have gone 20 minutes without mentioning generative AI. This might be the moment that it crops up, but how do you see this evolving in the future?
Well, there's a lot more to be done, and there's a lot more that can be achieved with generative AI, 5G, IoT. I'll be intrigued to see how all of these things develop. And where we sit in the market as a technology provider, and what we're seeing is data platforms becoming much more multi-model. And by that I mean that, as an example, with my own company, we provide support for JSON and SQL access. We're about to launch graph and time series capabilities. So the data platform providers are positioning themselves to cater for a wider range of data modeling and a wider range of data, because that's what our customers are looking for from us. From an ad tech perspective, the data volumes will keep growing. I've talked about the cookie deprecation, which started obviously with Firefox and Safari, and Google are due to deprecate the cookies in Chrome next year. So the new ID solutions that impact not just the ad techs, but any company that is B2C, they will need to be able to collect more data, consolidate more data, fuse geolocation, device type, context, and other information in order to create these digital IDs for their customers. And I think we'll also see the emergence of things like data clean rooms. Will come into play. So the data collected from two parties can be shared and consolidated into GDPR compliant ways. Again, not just to increase and control the data, but to achieve better targeting. You talked about the generative AI, a lot of discussions on, again, how we control it. And again, I can see there's going to be more legislation coming into that marketplace again over the next few years, which will drive data management and data processing requirements.
And before you came on the podcast, I was doing a little research, looking up all things Aerospike, and I seem to find a few teasers that suggesting Aerospike is going through an expansion process. And I appreciate there's probably not too much you can share, but is there anything you can share on your expansion in the EMEA region and your role in driving this growth too?
We're in a hot market, so it's very exciting to be with Aerospike at this time. But there really a couple of things that we're focused on, and from a personal perspective, I look at my counterpart in Asia Pac. They've done within Aerospike. They've done some great things, and my objective this year is to beat them. So that's what I've shared with my team.
Yeah,
key for us is to really educate the market on what we do, sharing our customer successes, which are incredible. Examples like the French ad tech Criteo, they reduced the number of servers from 5,000 to 600 when they implemented Aerospike. Not enough people know that story. We're developing strategic relationships and partnerships. Just yesterday, we announced our partnership with HPE for them to resell Aerospike's data platform as part of their HPE Electra storage platform. And doing some of the basic sales stuff. We are now getting back to face-to-face selling, meeting much more with our customers in person, hosting meetups. But we need to do a lot more education, and that will help drive the growth in my region.
And also, when I was researching you, I also learned you've got a keen love of horses. So I'm going to go off on a strange tangent here and ask, have you found any parallels between managing data and working with horses that you can share with your listeners? I'd be interested in your answer on this one.
Yeah, thanks for this question. So I am very lucky that in the past I have owned horses, and I'm even luckier now that I no longer own horses. So it's a great position to be in. But I still have the opportunity to ride where I live. I live in Windsor, and so I'm lucky enough to ride some of the cavalry horses that are stabled here. But back to the kind of the parallels. A cavalry officer I knew, he once described a horse to me as just another piece of kit to keep clean. Therefore, the parallel is that both horses and data can both get very dirty very quickly. And the amount of effort required to cleanse them can be enormous, and it will be a continuum. So as soon as you think that you have the data or the horse clean, then something will happen. And it's typically it will happen when you need it most. So you're about to go for a ride, or you need to make some strategic decisions. And at that point, the data becomes dirty again, and you have to go and cleanse it all over again. That's the best parallel that I could think of.
Wow, what a great answer. I put you on the spot a little there. I absolutely love that. And for anyone listening, business leader that's inspired by our conversation today, what advice would you give to any enterprise looking to harness or better harness the power of data to improve their business operations and decision-making processes during this period of uncertainty?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things. The first of all is, do not underestimate where this data journey could take you. When I first started in enterprise IT sales, the applications were very well defined. They were on-premise. There were no numbers for the users and that sort of thing. However, we all know now that applications need to be elastic to be able to cope with the digital demands and the internet. So I would say just be prepared that your data is going to be similarly stretched. So whilst you do not want to overcommit now in terms of IT resources, you should ensure that you implement a strategy that is both scalable, flexible, and can accommodate the variety of different types of data that you will experience. So that's the first thing. Don't underestimate where this journey could take you. And then the second thing is really get the data into the hands of the people that need to use it as quickly as possible and make it actionable, i.e. so they can use it immediately. They don't need to do any processing elsewhere. They don't need to export it. They don't need to merge it. So making it actionable so they can use it straight away. That's the second thing that I would urge anybody responsible for data in their organization to do.
Fantastic advice. And as we race through 2023, a lot of people are going to be starting to look for not only the year ahead, but also have one eye on 2024 and how trends this year are going to continue to reshape the industry and the digital landscape. So in your opinion, are there any other emerging trends in data management that maybe enterprises and business leaders should be keeping an eye on? And how can they better prepare for these changes to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I mean, there continues to be these trends based on regulation, which I've touched on quite a bit during this session. And that will drive data management. You know, we've seen things like the recent announcement of in the UK, the recent announcement of the Digital Markets Competition and Consumer Bill. There's various corporate social responsibilities. We saw the CEO of TikTok, being interrogated in the US just recently. There's proposed gambling reforms. There's cookie deprecation. These are all examples where the use of data in real time will become ever more important. So that's just not going to go away. But from a kind of technology perspective, the sort of things that I hear from that my customers talked about are around data mesh, GPT, IoT, 5G, data on Kubernetes, database as a service. These are all topics of conversation. However, with any of these things, my advice is always to think about the outcome you're trying to achieve and then work backwards from there to see which of these technologies will enable you to achieve it. That's what I would offer up as my advice there.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. We've covered a lot in a short amount of time. And for anyone listening, just wanting to dig a little bit deeper on anything we talked about, maybe someone wants to contact your team or just learn more about Aerospike and the work you're doing, what's the best starting point for everything?
Well, anyone can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Please don't confuse me with James Martin, the chef. So yeah, Martin at Aerospike. I'm there. Obviously, you go to the aerospike.com website. There's lots of resources and lots of customer stories there. There's also, look out for our Aerospike Dataversity Challenge videos, again, which we publish weekly, which will give you a bit more insight to the customers that we have in the EMEA region.
Well, we covered so much about trends in the industry, things to look out for, how businesses can better leverage data, the importance of millisecond performance and low latency, and how that's becoming a standard expectation, especially around managing data for globally distributed applications. And we did all that and even found a way to find a few parallels between managing data and working with horses. I think we covered it all, but a big thank you for sharing your story today.
Neil, many thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, a huge thank you to Martin for joining us and sharing his insights on the world of data management, and also Aerospike's role in the industry and even his love of horses and managing to link that to data. And it's clear that the future of data management and processing will be shaped by further advancements in technology, but also regulations and of course that ever-growing need for scalability and flexibility. And it is an incredibly difficult balance to achieve. And obviously you've heard from me, you've heard from Martin, our expert today. And I know we're going to have people listening that are also experts in this field. And this conversation is not about me or Martin telling you how it is. I want to hear your stories, your insights, your experiences. What is working for you? What is not working for you? What concerns you? What excites you? So for any of those things, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. And we'll keep this conversation going. So thank you to Martin for coming on here. I hope everyone gained valuable insights into how data is shaping the world around us. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to Tech Talks Daily to stay updated on the latest episodes. Leave a rating and review if you've enjoyed yourself, and always feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback. My door is open to each and every one of you. So stay curious, keep exploring the fascinating world of technology and the positive impacts it can have on business and our life. And until next time, don't be a stranger.